Allie with Potomac Beads. Join me in making this beautiful embellish flat chenille stitch bracelet. The flat chenille stitch video just came out, so make sure you watch that. And this kind of amps it up and takes it to the next level and shows you, giving ideas how to embellish on top of a flat stitch. Remember, you don't need to use these same exact materials, but watch and learn how you can take a simple flat stitch and really make it into something else. If you need any materials, remember to gather up those supplies that were just listed, as well as check out the links below to shop with us online at PotomacBeads.com as well as PotomacBeads.eu. So to do this design, what you need to do first is watch the flat chenille stitch and create that bracelet. We're going to be embellishing then that bracelet based on 8 OC beads and 11 OC beads. I have one flower on to show you exactly how it's going to sit. You can see it sits right on top, and it adds a lovely look to the design. You can do as many or as few of these pip flowers as you want. I have the pips in the pastel pink and 4mm Potomac Crystal Round in the olivine and 15 O's in the Duracoat Galvanized Gold. Now keep in mind, this bracelet base is completely finished, completely done, and I'm literally embellishing onto the top of that. Say I had this bracelet and I loved it and I wanted to wear it for a little bit, and then I thought, you know what, I need a little bit of flowers and a little bit of sunshine on this gray and kind of blah day in winter. So what I'm gonna do is I'm showing you, I already have one on because I wanted to show you that you can use a lot of thread scraps for that. Where we're going to be attaching and adding on is to one of our basically 4-point diamonds. We're going to attach on, I'm probably going to attach on right about here, or maybe this one right here, so that they almost touch and that one kind of hangs off the side a little bit. And we're going to be attaching to this 4 points here in the flower. If you have a piece of thread already attached, or if you don't, you're just going to sew up into that loop. What I'm going to do is actually take my thread and needle to the back of the bracelet so I can see a little bit more where my thread pass is going. Remember, I want to get it somewhere around up here. And the nice thing with this chenille stitch is you can really hide the thread along the piece. So I'm just going to take my thread and needle and sew back along the piece here, getting into position to add my flower design. And there is no right or wrong way to do this, or no right or wrong place to add. So that's what's kind of nice. And if you're not into that floral design and you think flowers aren't for me, then go ahead and try something else. Put a button on top, really kind of have fun with embellishing this stitch. And I do still want a lot of the chenille stitch to show because I think it is a beautiful stitch. So I'm in position now of this one here where I wanted them to go, and I'm just going to make sure that my flowers are not going to hit one another. They look a little close, so I'm going to go over to the next spot here so I don't lose my chenille stitch. Again, when I'm going in here, I'm sewing down along the stitch till I come out at a place to embellish. When you're looking at it, that has these 4 points with no seed bead in the middle. So I'm not going to the X, I'm coming out and I'm going to attach to this kind of square right there. I'm coming out of one of my 8 OC beads, I'm going to grab one of my pips and I'm going to sew through the next 8 OC bead. This is going to sit then right on top of the 15. Grab another pip, sew through the next 8-0 in that square of 8s and 15s. Again, give a nice tight pull so it sits right on top of that 15. Again, a pip goes on, around in the circle, through that next 8 OC bead. Make sure as you're doing this that they are sitting correctly and that your thread is not twisted at all. Grab your last one and you're going back through that same 8-0 that your thread was coming out of, and giving a nice tight pull. Once you're through there, you're going to sew through your first pip that you added onto the bracelet. That thread goes on. You can see you have those 4 there. You can also keep it varied and do a smaller flower and a bigger flower. You can change out the colors. Now what we're going to do is add 4 more pips, because each of my flowers I'm going to keep the exact same, and I'm going to add 4 more pips. You're going to be going and grabbing a pip, sew through the next pip in line that you already put on. Repeat this 4 times to round out your flower. Going through, adding a pip, so all we're doing is adding the pips in between. And this makes it sit a little 3-dimensional, since one is going to be pulled down tighter and one is going to be out a little bit more. So back through the first pip as you're adding your 8th one in place, as well as the first pip in this second row of 4. Push them down so that way you can pull all the thread tight. And then coming out, we're going to add our 4mm crystal. I want you to take your 4mm crystal, put it on the thread, and see the pip you're coming out of? You're going to stretch over to the pip on the opposite side, right there, and sew through that pip and come out. Once you're through that pip and you come out, I want you to go back through that seed bead, or sorry, back through that crystal, and kind of give a nice tight pull to center that out. And then you're going to take your thread and needle and sew back through that same pip coming in from the opposite side. That'll pull the crystal then right down into the middle of that flower. And then what we're going to do is embellish it so that that middle stands out with some gold seed beads to tie in the gold from our base. After you're done, I want you to come out through one of the crystals, and we are going to add some seed beads. So I have 15 O seed beads here, and I'm adding 7 to my needle. And I'm going to sew into the opposite side of that crystal. So I'm bringing my thread over. If you want to, you can even change it in your hands. And I'm going to sew through that crystal one more time. The crystal is going to have 4 pieces of thread through it, so it's a lot. Coming out the other side then, we're going to do the same thing. 7 15s go on. And then we're going to sew through the crystal again. Once you sew through that crystal again, you can see that kind of hugs right there in the flower nicely. And what we want to do is make it one consistent loop, so we don't want it to kind of pull one way or another. So we're going to sew all the way back through all of those 15 O seed beads, the whole way along this center line. What that's going to do is kind of connect one set of 7 to the other set of 7 and go the whole way through. Now you can see I'm running out of thread, so I'm just going to start with a new piece of thread when I go in to do my next flower. And again, there's no right or wrong way how to do this and how many to add. When you get back to the starting side, make sure you also go over to that first 7. And now all I need to do, now that that flower is nice and beautifully in place there, is get ready to add my next one. I'm going to take this thread and needle here, so down into one of my pips that I'm right near. And after I go through that pip, well, and if it wants to go through 2, that's fine also. After I'm down through that pip, go ahead and take your thread and needle to the back of the bracelet. And now you're going to sew along the chenille stitch to just end the thread. You can knot along it if you want. You can kind of take your thread back to the starter thread here and just tie off that thread to the back of the project and burn down if you have any thread end. Once you're done and you're through that project, you're just going to flip it over, grab a new piece of thread. This is great for kind of those different pieces of thread that are sitting around that are not super long, but they have thread attached to the needle. Go ahead and add that along the piece and continue then going and picking your next diamond set. Mine probably is right there. I'm going to come out there, add my 4 pips, add the 4 into them, and continue on adding my little winter flowers along my bracelet. So just to show the connection point again, you can see I have 4 of my flowers on here, and I'm coming out the flower. I'm going to put one more over on this side, I think right there on the actual exterior. I'm going to again just sew down through the project there to the back of the bracelet, bring my needle out, and then follow the thread lines. This is where it is really nice to have this chenille stitch as the base, because there's so many opportunities to sew along it and hide your thread. If you do want to do a different base, you could do a peyote base, you can do a herringbone base, and still do kind of the same concept of the flowers. The only difference that you're going to have is, one, you may see that actual stitch coming up through the back, and you're going to have to change up how you're doing that connection. So just a little heads up on that, that it is possible and ready to go. Once I get right here to this open space, I'm going to add in my next flower on the side, and probably about 3 more flowers in total, so I'll end up with about 7 flowers when I'm looking at it. Coming out here, I'm going to make sure that I am coming out through one of my 8/0 seed beads. And then once I'm out one of those 8/0s, I'm going to go ahead and pick up my pip, sew into the next 8/0. The only difference that I'm on the corner is going to be, I'm not going to have an 11/0 underneath there on the side. I'm just going to continue around. One thing to make yourself aware of is that sometimes the pips really want to kind of sit on an angle, and that thread there wants to twist. Make sure to untwist the thread and then pull down on your pip. So again, the only difference if you're on a corner or you're on the edge is that you take your pip and you just switch right over and jump over that bridge thread. Continue on then, adding in your 4th and final one of your pips. And I wanted this to be really organic. As I said, you can have fun embellishing with buttons. One of the reasons that I'm not doing this as a full garden and having flowers kind of come up everywhere is because I really like the chenille stitch and I think it's really pretty. So continue on adding in your pip flowers wherever you want along your bracelet until you tie off and are finished with your design. Once you're done adding your little flowers or your blossoms to the front of the bracelet, you can have fun if you want to go back and put leaves on. I really liked the organic feel of this. You can also change up the colors, do all kinds of different fun things with the design. And then when you wear it, it's that nice fun kind of flowers popping along the top with that nice kind of 3D look around the bracelet. Remember, as always with the videos, if you need any materials, we are more than happy to get them to you. You can check us out at PotomacBeads.com as well as PotomacBeads.eu. There's also links to the website below if you need a little help to get there, as well as if you hit that bell in the corner, you can subscribe to get regular updates from us here at Potomac Beads. Always remember too, you can comment and share. Let us know what your design ideas, what you've done, and also share your pictures in our Facebook group for beading and jewelry making of how you're embellishing some of your flat stitch designs. As always, thanks so much for watching and enjoy making your embellished flat chenille stitch in this beautiful winter blossom design.